The film Submarine D-1 originated from the short story Submarine 262 by Frank Spig Weed, a retired United States Navy aviator and air power advocate who drew on his military experience to craft authentic naval narratives. Weed, who transitioned from active duty to screenwriting in the 1930s, served as a consultant on the project, ensuring the depiction of submarine operations aligned with real-world procedures. The screenplay was credited to Weed, alongside Warren Duff, Lawrence Kimball, and William Wister Haynes, with a focus on incorporating precise naval terminology and tactics to highlight the United States Submarine Service's capabilities. Produced by Cosmopolitan Productions for Warner Brothers Pictures, the project reflected the studio's interest in prestige naval dramas during the interwar period. Direction was assigned to Lloyd Bacon, a Warner Brothers veteran known for handling socially conscious films with ensemble casts. Pre-production emphasized collaboration with the United States Navy, including approval of the script by officials at the submarine base in New London, Connecticut, and technical advice from Commander G.W.D. Daschle to safeguard sensitive information while promoting submarine modernization. The script was finalized in early 1937, capitalizing on growing public fascination with naval themes amid rising international tensions before World War II. Production wrapped by August 11, 1937, leading to a November release that underscored the film's timely alignment with pre-war military preparedness narratives. The surviving production record provides several precise markers for the project. The American Film Institute lists Submarine 262 as the working title, records the end of production on August 11, 1937, and gives November 27, 1937 as the release date. Warner Brothers registered the copyright on November 16th. The completed picture was a black and white sound production running 100 minutes in 11 reels, and it opened with a dedication to the United States Submarine Service. These details show that the naval connection was not merely part of the advertising campaign. It was built into the film's official presentation and identity from the beginning. Principal photography for Submarine D-1 primarily occurred in 1937 at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California, where interior submarine scenes were constructed on sound stages to replicate authentic naval environments. Location shooting supplemented these studio efforts, taking place at key naval sites including the submarine base in New London, Connecticut, Coronado Beach in San Diego, California, Santa Catalina Island, and along the Panama Canal to capture exterior and transit sequences. The production received United States Navy approval for its storyline to ensure no classified information was disclosed, allowing access to active facilities and vessels. Real United States Navy submarines were integral to the film's authenticity. The USS Dolphin served as the primary stand-in for the fictional D-1, providing most exterior shots during its depicted voyage from Connecticut to San Diego via the Panama Canal. Secondary scenes featured the USS Shark, particularly during Panama Canal sequences. Additional fleet footage was incorporated from the United States Navy's Fleet Problem 20 exercises, showcasing large-scale maneuvers to enhance the film's depiction of naval operations. Navy archival photographs help explain why the boats on screen look so convincing. Pictures of submarines moored alongside the submarine tender Holland between 1936 and 1939 show that Dolphin has a large D1 marking on her bow and Shark has the marking P3. These were real fleet identification marks, not just names painted on for filming. So for viewers in 1937, the exterior shots showed active submarines in their normal working condition. They were surrounded by submarine tenders, docks, canal infrastructure, and other details that would have been extremely difficult for a studio to recreate at full scale. The later service of the two main submarines involved in the filming adds even more depth to this footage. Dolphin remained an active fleet submarine when the United States entered World War II and was moored at Pearl Harbor during the Japanese attack on December 31, 1941. The official report states that the crew manned their battle stations, grabbed machine guns, submachine guns, and rifles, and opened fire on enemy aircraft without taking any damage. Shark also continued active service, joining the Asiatic Fleet before the war, and went missing in action during operations around the Dutch East Indies in February 1942. Seemingly ordinary peacetime vessels filmed by Warner Brothers Studio soon became part of a real global conflict. Cinematographer Arthur Edison used groundbreaking techniques to shoot complex underwater scenes and the canal transit, blending real location footage with controlled studio simulations. Editor William Holmes masterfully wove in archival footage of the Panama Canal transit to smoothly connect the location shoots with the developing plot. During production, the team faced logistical challenges trying to recreate the cramped submarine interiors and dynamic diving scenes. To achieve authenticity inside, they relied on detailed soundstage sets, and to create dangerous action scenes like depth charge explosions and underwater threats, they used miniature models. The combination of real vessels and studio sets also solved a practical filmmaking problem. A real submarine provided convincing movement, spray, exhaust, deck activity, and the right scale. But its cramped compartments left almost no room for a large movie camera, lighting equipment, sound recording gear, and a full cast. Instead, the interiors recreated on a soundstage could be selectively expanded, fitted with removable walls, and lit from angles that would be simply impossible inside a real boat. The result was a controlled version of submarine life. It was visually packed with valves, gauges, pipes, bunks, and watertight doors, but at the same time, open enough for viewers to follow the actors and understand what was happening. The score was composed by Max Steiner using patriotic motifs like the song "Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean" during the closing credits to emphasize the theme of naval duty. The final runtime of the film was 100 minutes, although some prints ran for 94 minutes. The main cast of Submarine D-1 consisted of Warner Brothers contract actors who brought naval drama to the screen, focusing on personal rivalry and heroism on board. Pat O'Brien plays Chief Petty Officer Butch Rogers, an experienced and hot-headed submariner. His determination drives the central conflict and heroic acts in the plot, drawing on his character's background as a fleet veteran advocating for submarine innovations. O'Brien's performance vividly shows Rogers' journey from personal conflicts to selfless heroism during the crew's dangerous voyage. George Brent plays Lieutenant Commander Dan Matthews, the calm and authoritative officer commanding the submarine D-1 through high-stakes challenges. He provides steady leadership during mechanical failures and combat simulations. Brent's portrayal highlights Matthews' role in building crew unity and ensuring mission success. Wayne Morris plays Petty Officer First Class Sock McGillis, who is later promoted to Chief. He's a youthful, ambitious sailor whose cocky attitude initially causes tension with Rogers, but ultimately leads to his personal growth by the film's end. Morris brings great energy to the character, showing his transformation from a rival into a reliable team member during the boat's trials. Frank McHugh appears as Lucky Jones. He's the crew's lighthearted jester, providing comic relief in tense situations, often through optimistic schemes and his friendships with other sailors. McHugh's comedic timing balances the film's dramatic elements, making Jones a genuine morale booster for the journey. Doris Weston stars as Anne Sawyer, the romantic interest whose affections spark an onshore rivalry between Rogers and McGillis. This adds emotional depth to the characters' motivations beyond their naval duties. Weston's role grounds the story in personal stakes, influencing the lead's decisions during shore leave. The supporting cast of Submarine D-1 featured several character actors who enriched the naval drama and comedic elements of the film. Henry O'Neill portrayed Admiral Thomas, the authoritative fleet overseer. He delivers crucial briefings to the submarine crew and provides a sense of high-level command structure. Denny Moore played Arabella, a lively character who adds humor to the shoreside scenes through witty interactions with the officers. Veda Ann Borg appeared as Dolly, contributing to the romantic subplots with her flirtatious role in the sailors' personal lives. Regis Toomey played Tom Callan, a fellow officer involved in intense action sequences aboard the vessel. There are some interesting details surrounding uncredited or cut roles in the production. Ronald Reagan was cast in a small part as Paul, but his scenes were ultimately removed during editing. This marked one of his earliest unfulfilled Hollywood assignments. Broderick Crawford was rumored to have a small role as Mike, but according to casting records, he did not appear in the final film. Additionally, Donald Briggs provided an uncredited performance as the escape instructor, guiding the crew through vital submarine training drills. The production history provides a more specific picture of the deleted material featuring Reagan. The studio press book described Paul as Anne's childhood friend and an aviation chief petty officer who competed for her attention. Reagan appeared sixth in a Daily Variety preview cast list. This suggests his character survived into at least one preview version of the film. However, contemporary reviews did not mention him, and the role is completely absent from the final print. This shows how late editing could substantially reshape a studio film, even after publicity departments had already prepared character descriptions and billing. The film crew played an important role in making the movie. Director Lloyd Bacon used his experience working on naval stories for Warner Brothers to masterfully blend action and character interaction. Cinematographer Arthur Edison shot the submarine interiors and sea voyages with atmospheric lighting, which heightened the tension of the underwater scenes. Editor William Holmes ensured a smooth narrative pace, creating seamless transitions between training, romance, and danger. The movie Submarine D-1 is an American adventure film from 1937. It tells the story of the crew of the fictional submarine USS Dolphin, which has the designation D-1. The crew makes a transcontinental transit from a naval base in Connecticut to San Diego, California, through the Panama Canal. At the center of the story are two submariners, Lieutenant Commander Butch Rogers, played by George Brent, and Chief Torpedoman Sock McGillis, played by Pat O'Brien. On land, they compete for the heart of Nurse Ann Sawyer, played by Gloria Stewart, but at sea, they become true brothers in arms. This story combines adventure, comedy, and drama, showing the submarine Dolphin as a symbol of team unity in the harsh daily life at sea. The crew's journey is full of challenges that reveal the full complexity of submarine service. The viewer sees intense training, war games like the 20th Fleet maneuvers, as well as ordinary life situations, from jokes to bar fights during port calls. Along the way, incidents occur that test the crew's skill. For example, due to a problem with the ballast valves, the submarine temporarily gets stuck submerged. This serves as a reminder of the constant danger and the need to act instantly. These scenes also show the physical exhaustion of the service. The sailors carefully follow procedures to avoid decompression sickness and at the same time demonstrate different personalities, from carefree optimism to iron discipline. This is exactly what helps them survive in the confined space. The climax of the story is a rescue operation off Point Loma in California. There, during maneuvers, another submarine sinks and its crew is trapped. Butch, who always supported the latest rescue technologies, leads the operation. He uses the recently developed McCann rescue chamber and Momsen lungs to extract the survivors. This tense moment demonstrates ingenuity and heroism, resolves the personal conflicts of the characters, and proves the importance of technical progress in the Navy. The rescue equipment from the movie was based on a real Navy program. Lieutenant Charles Bowers Momsen developed a breathing apparatus for rescue, which was named the Momsen lung. Its first test took place in 1929. At that time, 26 officers and sailors successfully escaped an intentionally flooded submarine. The apparatus scrubbed carbon dioxide from the air and supplied oxygen, allowing the submariner to ascend to the surface on their own. It was intended mainly for rescue from relatively shallow depths, where a sailor could leave the damaged boat and swim up without the help of a rescue vessel. The rescue chamber worked on a different principle. Its development began under Momsen's leadership in 1928. Later, Lieutenant Commander Alan Rockwell McCann led the refinement, and around 1930, the Navy received the finished chamber. It was lowered from a surface rescue ship to the damaged submarine, positioned over the escape hatch, and sealed tightly to the pressure hull. Water from the lower compartment was pumped out, the pressure was equalized, and the hatches could be opened. The trapped sailors moved inside, after which the chamber was raised to the surface. Unlike the individual breathing apparatus, it created a safe and controlled corridor between the submarine and the rescue vessel. When the movie Submarine D-1 came out in 1937, submarine rescue technology hadn't yet seen its most famous success. That happened on May 24th and 25th, 1939, after the submarine Squalus sank off the coast of New Hampshire at a depth of about 240 feet. The McCann rescue chamber, lowered from the vessel Falcon, made 4 dives and brought all 33 surviving sailors from the forward compartments to the surface. This real-world operation, carried out less than 2 years after the premiere, proved that the rescue concept shown in the movie wasn't just Hollywood fiction. Submarine D-1 focuses on the core theme of brotherhood among sailors. It shows how personal rivalries turn into unbreakable bonds during their time operating submerged. Former rivals Butch Rogers and Sock McGillis find themselves together again on board the submarine D-1. Their shared hardships forge a strong friendship, and the crew learns to rely on one another. This highlights the old rule that a ship is only as strong as its weakest sailor. This dynamic perfectly captures the unity required inside the tight confines of a submarine, where one man's mistake can put the entire crew in danger. The movie clearly shows the dangers of submarine service and the heroism of the men who choose it. Technological innovations here serve as symbols of human ingenuity and resilience. Accidental flooding during drills or emergencies, where water fills the ballast tanks and traps the crew on the bottom, vividly illustrates the deadly risks of the job. Rescue chambers and escape devices take center stage. For example, a device invented by the main character ends up saving lives during fleet maneuvers. It acts as a tribute to naval heroism and the pre-war Navy's push for better safety. This heavy focus on safety didn't just appear out of nowhere. It echoed real peacetime tragedies. Before reliable rescue systems existed, a damaged submarine might leave its crew alive, but completely out of reach on the ocean floor. The loss of the submarine S-4 after a collision off Provincetown in December 1927 created massive public pressure. The public demanded better rescue methods. The Navy reviewed thousands of proposals and fast-tracked the development of both individual breathing devices and a rescue chamber that could dock with a submarine hatch. By showcasing rescue technology as a mark of professionalism, the movie reflected a conversation that had gripped engineers, divers, submariners, and the American press for a solid decade. The romantic rivalry in the movie adds comic contrast to their harsh daily duties, reflecting the spirit of the 1930s. The tension between Rogers and McGillis over a shared love interest lightens the heavy atmosphere of their service. It contrasts their personal conflicts on shore with the strict discipline required at sea. At the same time, it's a subtle reminder that duty always comes before personal desires. Since the movie came out right before World War II, it has some propaganda elements meant to glorify the American Navy. You can clearly feel the looming global conflict during the training exercises and canal transits. Dedicated to the submarine force and officially endorsed by military leadership, the film highlights American combat readiness and technological power. It shows that submarine operations are absolutely critical for defending the country as international tensions continue to rise. The comedic moments in Submarine D-1 highlight just how important crew morale is when operating in extreme conditions. Humor helps cut the tension and shows these sailors as regular guys. Lighthearted stories, funny mistakes, and personal issues mixed in with their service help soften the drama. This perfectly illustrates how a good sense of humor and strong camaraderie help the men handle the psychological pressure and overcome the dangers of submarine service. The Submarine D-1, originally named Narwhal, was laid down on April 16, 1908 in Quincy, Massachusetts. It was launched on April 8, 1909. After fitting out, on November 23rd of that same year, Narwhal was commissioned into the fleet under the command of Lieutenant Julius C. Townsend. Less than 2 years later, on November 17, 1911, the boat was renamed D-1 due to a change in the classification system of the United States Navy. This vessel marked an important step in the development of American submarine shipbuilding. Its displacement was 288 tons, and its armament consisted of 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. Official specifications showed just how compact this submarine was. Its overall length was 134 feet and 10 inches. Its beam reached almost 14 feet, and its draft was 11 feet and 8 inches. The surface speed of D-1 could reach 13 knots, while its submerged speed was up to 8.5 knots. The crew consisted of only 15 officers and enlisted men. Compared to later submarines, this narrow hull required an incredibly tight arrangement of engines, batteries, torpedoes, control systems, supplies, and living quarters for the crew. These speed capabilities perfectly reflect the logic of submarine operations at the time. D-1 was faster on the surface, where the engines provided propulsion while simultaneously charging the batteries. When submerged, the boat relied exclusively on electric power, which had a very limited capacity. Because of this, early submarines spent most of their patrols surfaced, barely riding above the waves, and submerged primarily for attacks, training exercises, or tactical concealment. The small size of the crew allowed them to carry less food and fresh water, but every sailor had to perform highly specialized tasks in close quarters with the machinery and weapons. High-quality training was just as critical as the equipment itself. Any mistake with the valves, ventilation system, electronics, or the trim of the boat could cost the lives of everyone on board. After entering service, D-1 joined the Atlantic Torpedo Fleet, based in Newport, Rhode Island. The submarine was constantly involved in training dives in local bays, straits, and off the coast of Virginia. The crew took part in torpedo testing, experimental missions, and patrolling the East Coast. As the lead ship of its class, D-1 earned high praise from the command for its contribution to the development of submarine tactics and training. Its service clearly demonstrated how quickly the capabilities of American submarines were growing in the early 20th century. The geography of the boat's deployments was not limited to just local training. From January 20th to April 11th, 1913, D-1, along with its flotilla, made a voyage to the Caribbean Sea. During a second lengthy deployment from January 5th to April 21st, 1914, the submarines visited ports in the Gulf of Mexico and Florida. These expeditions were meant to test whether small, experimental boats could operate effectively far from their home base, endure long transits, and coordinate with support ships in other regions. In addition, these deployments gave the officers and sailors invaluable experience in navigation, diving, handling torpedoes, battery maintenance, and joint operations within a flotilla. As the lead ship of the American D-class submarines, D-1 played a key role at the dawn of United States submarine technology. It entered the fleet in 1909 and helped lay the foundation for submarine operations. From 1911 to 1918, it took part in large-scale exercises, torpedo tests, and experiments along the East Coast and in the Caribbean Sea. During World War I, the submarine D-1 remained in American waters instead of heading overseas for combat patrols. Its main job became training crews and officers. This role was strategically vital. The submarine force was growing fast, and it needed qualified specialists who understood processes that were too dangerous to learn just from manuals. The old boat made an ideal practical classroom. Here, they practiced diving, emergency procedures, engine operations, and command decision-making. In this way, its modest combat value turned into invaluable experience for the entire fleet. The end of the vessel's service happened gradually. On September 9, 1919, D-1 was officially placed in reserve. This reduced operational wear and tear, but allowed training and experiments to continue. On July 17, 1920, its designation was changed from Submarine Number 17 to S-S-17, following a new classification system that clearly indicated the vessel type. By January 30th, 1922, the boat arrived at a shipyard in Philadelphia. 9 days later, on February 8th, it was finally decommissioned. On June 5th, the hull was sold for scrap. No parts of this vessel survived. However, the service of D-1 became a clear example of how American submarines evolved from experimental craft into a crucial part of military strategy. This experience influenced the design and tactics of subsequent models, such as the E and F classes. Although the submarine served for just over 12 years, this time became a defining phase in the development of the submarine force. When D-1 first entered service, navies still treated submarines as little more than small torpedo boats. Their reliability, endurance, and tactical value had to be constantly proven. But by the time this boat was decommissioned, the submarine force already had standardized hull numbers, specialized training systems, support ships, defined operational zones, and a clear role in naval planning. That is why the story of D-1 is not a tale of dramatic naval battles. It is a story of continuous, painstaking work. It is about diving, torpedo testing, coastal cruises, training drills, experiments, and repairs. It is about gathering invaluable experience and establishing the rules that the lives of future generations of submariners would eventually depend on.